Hello, everybody.
I don't think we're going to be able to see them, Jennifer.
No, but I can see the number of counts. So people are ticking in right now. We have 19 that are on, and we'll just give people just another minute or two to log in, knowing it's a busy time of year. So we're still hovering at that 19 mark. Oh, we've hit 20. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking the time. Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and get started? This meeting is being recorded, and so if folks join a little bit later, they'll have the opportunity to go back and listen again. And for those of you who are on the call or watching later, my name is Jennifer Tamba. I'm the president of TALC, and I also have the great privilege to be president of the ETOA board, which basically means chair. And I'm joined today by my esteemed and awesome colleague, Marco DeRivo, who is part of Mickey Travel and sits on the advisory council with me. And we're here today as part of our recruiting efforts to encourage you and others that you might know in the industry to apply to the advisory council. And we wanted to use the time today to provide a little bit of background to who we are and what we do and how this process works, and answer any questions that you might have. And I want to give a huge shout out of thanks also to the whole team at ETOA for helping us with this presentation and hosting the webinar today. So thank you all very much again. So without further ado, let's dive right in. And the first thing we want to do is go over the agenda today of who we are, as I mentioned, what we do, what the expectations are for the role. And Marco is going to share some of his experiences, his personal experiences and takeaways from serving on the advisory council now for several years. We'll go over the application process and the deadlines and answer any questions that you might have. So let's launch right in. Who we are. We have a couple of pages and we'll just take a few minutes on each to share that the Advisory Council for ETOA is a maximum of 25. We currently have 19 now. That comprises of a subset of our board, which includes, of course, myself, Mario Bodini, who's the past chair of ETOA, and Karen Urban, who's also our ETOA treasurer on our board, as well as the rest of the advisory council, and Marco obviously here today. We have representation from the Travel Corp, from Ljubljana Tourism, from the Nordic Tourism Collective, from Blue Boat, from Go City, Accor, and flipping to the next page, thank you, for the European Tourism Commission, Live Travel and Tours and Student Travel, EF Education, Globus Family of Brands, G2 Europe Hotels, Tourwise of London, Maritime Expedia, and Kuoni Tumulare. And that is currently who we are now. As I mentioned, we're 19. Our intention is to be in that sort of 15 to 20 range, but we're certainly willing to go up to 25 to ensure that we have broad representation among the buyer members at ETOA. We're looking for broad geographic representation and have a lot of fun together as we work very hard to represent the diversity of views and explore different destinations. This is some of us in action. We've been fortunate to have been hosted by Visit Brussels and many, that's when we set up our offices in Brussels last year. We were able to enjoy each other's company and explore that city together. We've also always tried to work in a little bit of fun with all of our meetings and debates that we have. And here's some representation of our time in Luzern and in London at the National Gallery as well. And you'll see some more here. So what do we do? In addition to eating and drinking and having a good time with one another, we are working together to actively participate in promoting and strengthening Europe overall as a tourism destination. So ETOA, as you know, serves many roles in advocacy and engagement and business building. And we are together working to drive that forward and be stronger in the process, particularly now as Europe returns with such zest and health coming out of COVID. We also advise the executive board. So there are questions that come up during our board meetings that say, hey, we only are a small group. We need a better understanding of what the broader collective is thinking. And so we look for the advisory council of understanding questions like operational needs in Paris, or what some of the new tax situation might be in a certain country. These are all of those kind of pulse checks that we're doing with the advisory council. And it's very frequently that someone from the board or the ETOA management will just reach out and say, hey, I'm hearing this issue, what's going on? And we can all weigh in with our thoughts and perspectives. And of course, we're working very hard to be listening posts for the broader ETOA membership overall, which numbers in the hundreds and hundreds. So while representing them, then also trying to distill all of that to raise issues of areas and questions that we feel that ETOA should address. So on the next page. So what are the expectations? We meet a minimum of 4 times a year, usually Brussels in the first quarter and London at some point in the year, and at least one country-sponsored destination. So as I mentioned, this last year, we had the great privilege of being in Luzern and Witznau, and went up to Rigibahn and had a lovely time. Thank you and courtesy to our partners at Visit Switzerland. It is possible to participate virtually. I, for example, am based in the United States, and we have representatives all across Europe, and we recognize people's calendars are busy, but yet also the importance of hearing everyone's voices. So while it's always better to meet in person, as I'm sure you're finding with your own companies, we do allow that virtual participation for up to 2 meetings. The expectation is that members will serve on the advisory council for 1 to 3 years. Sometimes that is renewable. Certainly when we have a voice that's particularly engaged and active, that represents a segment that we want to hear more from. We expect that all members will participate in relevant working groups as they pop up. Sometimes they're ad hoc situations where we have a specific issue. For example, with some of the German VAT questions that have popped up over the last 2 years, we had a tight team working and advising specifically on that, but they might be ongoing issues like questions around broad taxation or over tourism in Europe, or right now, for example, the Paris Olympics, and how are we managing through some of the operational questions there. We also have an expectation that everyone involved in the advisory council is going to take active involvement and engagement in ETOA events and activities. So that's everything from helping us promote and spread the word on social media about different activities that are coming on board, to actually not only attending yourself, or if that's impossible, or also encouraging others from your company to attend our events, everything from the regional events that might be held to our global European marketplace that just happened a couple of weeks ago in London, which is probably our signature event of the year. But whether it's Destination Exchange, that is our June major event, or all the other activities throughout the year that we keep updated on our website, there is an expectation that people will be involved. And then, as I mentioned, there's ad hoc consultation that comes into play, where we have a WhatsApp group that questions get fired away and people weigh in on what their needs are. Again, I think that's not uncommon for how we all learn to work together, and actually in a lot of ways strengthened our engagement as we battled through the difficult time of COVID. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Marco DeRivo, who could share some of his firsthand experiences of serving on the advisory council. Marco?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Jennifer. You have made such a good presentation of what we do at EAC. I like that you highlighted the fun part of it, but as well there is the consultation, the working together factor of being enabled as part of the EAC to bring up your voice and the voice of your company to discuss topics which are at the heart of our industry. So I've been in Mickey Travel quite a few years, and I've been asked to join the AC a couple of years ago. So I started just when finally things start to easy up a little bit. So the first meeting was remote, but then every other meeting I was able to attend in person. I have to be honest, at the beginning I was a little bit scared because and starstruck in many ways as well of being able to sit at the table with so many legends and luminaries of our industries. I felt a little bit like almost an imposter, as they say, but they quickly made me feel very, very welcome. It's incredible how I was made at ease and able to communicate and open up on any topic we discuss. The whole atmosphere is very, very friendly. And while we are there for business, it doesn't mean we cannot have a laugh together, and which is very important. What ETOA provide us with this AC committee is an incredible platform, in my view, where we are able to get involved with our colleagues, with our competitors, with suppliers, and with representative of our industry, from DMC to local tourism association, and it creates a very open conversation, and in through ETOA spirit is pan-European, as in it crosses many borders and many countries. So you can have from Jennifer from the US to our colleague in Ljubljana, and our colleagues in Brussels, and across all Europe. So it's quite interesting to be able to sit together and have this conversation, and they are very interesting conversation. We touch many topics that affect our industry, from political barriers to more practical one. Some of the things we discussed lately was things like Amsterdam trying to close the city center to coaches, Paris Olympic, as Jennifer highlighted, the problem with ticketing, and for all of those, what cannot be go in depth. We do have various committee, so being part of committee is not taxing at all. It's quite a joy. It's just a little bit of your time to try and support on moving forward. Because what we tend to forget sometimes is ETOA is not just about doing seminars or doing workshops. It is an amazing advocate, and it can reach the political forces regulating our industry, and that it's all over Europe. So if you want to have a voice and a platform where you can share your concern and you can discuss openly, then the AC committee is a very good place to be. I think I've said most of it. The WhatsApp group is quite fun. We reach out, we send each other reminders, or we just very quickly, if something happened, we ask if there is any impact, if anybody has noticed something. So it's a very quick way to reach out. There are a few emails going back and forward, but generally speaking, the commitment, it's not taxing at all. It's more of a joy. It's quite a good environment, and it's nice to be there and be able to speak up, be able to voice over your concern, and be able to share your experiences. I think I touched it all, Jennifer, really.
I think you have, Marco. That, you spoke about a couple of things that I want to emphasize. First of all, I was intimidated too when I first started, and I consider you a luminary. So it's so funny to say that. But I think what we've learned is that we are really quite a big family. And we have, I think, all felt very comfortable voicing our sometimes differences of opinions, but also sort of share insights and knowledge with one another as well. And for a lot of ways, and I think, Marco, you would agree with this too, it's sort of become our own sort of, as we say in the US here, kitchen cabinet of advisors. Sort of, this is what I'm hearing. Are you hearing the same thing? What are you saying about hotel rates, or what are you saying about over tourism situations? And I think that just helps also all of us get sort of a reality check for our own individual businesses, in addition to raising topics that affect all of Europe. I will say just also we do have, as Marco well pointed out, such a geographic diversity. We know there's still more work to do there. And I think if there's one word that we are seeking as we look for into our application is a diversity of candidates. And some of that is geography, some of that's gender, just different backgrounds and voices, so that we can make sure that we do indeed represent all of Europe. That was a driving force why we relocated our offices from London to Brussels. And we do want to make sure that we represent the broader European footprint in its many different forms, and certainly having a diversity of talent and female talent in particular is helpful to advancing all of our needs. So with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about the application process, please. And so you'll see that when you scan that QR code, you can also find the application on the website. If you go to etoa.org/about-us, there's a tab on the Advisory Council, and you'll see the AC application is a link there. And what we're trying to understand is just a little bit more about who you are. What's the scope of responsibilities that you have? Why do you want to join us? Hopefully we've given you some compelling reasons today, but we'd like to hear really from your perspective, what do you think is valuable or that you'd like to contribute? What is the specific knowledge or experience you'd like to bring to the Advisory Council? Again, we are knowing there's so much evolution happening specifically in the hotel world and technology. We are looking at that, but just broadly help us on different perspectives, because while sometimes people think of us as just a group tourism organization, we are certainly not, and we represent a lot of companies and travelers who are both FIT group and also, again, from everything that's a more perhaps senior market that I at Tauk serve to our student travelers or other youth groups that might be coming, or families. So it really is quite a diverse background, and we want to make sure that our AC membership includes and represents that. Where do you see areas of opportunity and growth for ETOA? I just mentioned a few, but perhaps you have different perspectives, and we'd love to hear that. We want to make sure that we're staying contemporary and relevant to the membership. And what do you see as tourism's biggest challenges in Europe? Obviously, we've gone through a lot. We continue to go through a lot. We quickly went from no one being able to go to Europe to rumblings of that word, tourism density. I'm going to use avoid the other one, tourism density coming back, to issues around sustainability or other tax related issues. So we really want to make sure, again, that we hear your perspective of why you feel like you would be a strong participant and added member of the Advisory Council. And we've been really delighted with the interest, not only on this webinar today, but just in the demand we've already seen. So we're excited about that. But again, want to make sure that as we move forward, we continue to stay relevant to driving tourism across Europe. And so with that, I think there just a last on the application timeline. The deadline is December 4th. So please have your application in by that. We do have a December Advisory Council and board meeting. It's a short one, just given the craziness of the holidays, but the nominating committee, of which Marco and I sit with a couple of other members, will be reviewing the applications that we receive and putting forth some recommendations that the board ultimately approves. And then we would let any candidates know by February 22nd. And the reason for that date is we have our General Assembly and our first Board and Advisory Council meeting of 2024 the following week, and we want to make sure that we have the slate of candidates put forward by then for broad approval. So that is our plan, and I think that's the last slide. So I think we just open it to any questions that you might have, and I think you can just put those in the chat, or someone on our ETOA team, our awesome team, will just read those out. So the question was about that the presentation's recorded. How can we have it? And I believe, Sophie, I'm going to ask you if you can share that, but I think we can just send that out and post it on our website. But Sophie,
Yes, it will be on the portal, my understanding. There will be a link on the portal to access it. There is a raised hand
Yeah, I think it was
from.
Alberto. Is that yours, the
Yeah.
same question, Alberto? If you have a different question, you can feel free to unmute and if you can and ask, or you can just type it in the chat. Otherwise, we'll assume your hand raised is hand down. There we go. Okay.
Hi, how are you doing? Thanks for the opportunity. Yes, that's the question that I wanted to listen and show to my colleagues this presentation, this great presentation. So if I could have it, so I thank you so much. You answered. So I wait for this opportunity also to listen it again.
Great. Thank you for taking the time to join us. We hope that you'll participate and join in, and please feel free to share the recording. So it'll be sent to you and then on our website shortly, as Marco said. We also have a question in the chat. Was it will there be interviews as part of the candidates selected or just applications reviewed only? I think it sort of depends on the volume and the type of candidates that we receive. We do have time put into our review process and our application to do interviews as needed. So it is a possibility, but not a definite. How about that? And there was a question about how many people will be admitted. You know, this is, again, we have a maximum of 25. Our intention is 15 to 20. We have 19 now. We're looking to sort of adding 1 to 3 applicants, but I think, again, we're leaving ourselves open depending on the caliber of the applicant, application pool, and the needs that we see collectively as a nominating committee and as an advisory council, and then as our board review. Is that fair, Marco? Is there anything you want to add?
Yes. Yeah, no, it's very fair. There is a very, very interesting question in that has just been loaded by an anonymous. I think it's very important because he's asking along diversity for gender and geolocation. Will you consider people of a younger age group, mid-management level, as possible future leader? Do you always recruit candidate as senior manager, director, or above? I think it's a very, very good question, actually. I'll let you answer, Jennifer, and then I can give my view as well if you want to.
We talk about this a lot, and we'd highly encourage younger leaders to come in. We, some of us have been in the industry for, in my case, more than 20 years. And we talk a lot about how we can create a pipeline for future leaders at ETOA. And so I would answer your question is absolutely we would consider. And in fact, it's something that we talk not only about, but would want to take action on to include as having those voices at the table. So I don't know who you are, but please apply. So we'll be looking at those applications of, you don't need to have a certain title necessarily. In some cases it does help, but it's absolutely not required. This is not a prerequisite for being part of the advisory council, and we very much encourage younger leaders to apply.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be very interesting, and it's all about the quality and the knowledge that each candidate can bring. In addition to the existing one, we don't want to repeat again what we already have. We want to have something that is actually missing from the current number of members that we have on the committee. So definitely, it's a very good point.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. The other question came up of, does ETOA cover the travel costs for members to attend meetings, or are individual employers expected to do so? Unfortunately, ETOA does not have a travel budget, so we do this at will and covered by the respective travelers members companies. That's also why we enable virtual participation twice a year.
I can add on that one that sometimes when we are invited by certain destination, then you might have some meals or the accommodation which might have been covered by that. But generally speaking, yes, you're correct, Jennifer. The most expenses your company will be expected to be covered for it. So you have to make sure that your company has enough budget for you to be able to attend at least twice a year one of these meetings. The other one can be done remotely, but I strongly advise to attend as many as you can in person. It's more happening when you're attending in person, because there is a lot behind the scene that goes on as well, not just during the meeting. So I strongly recommend that you find the time and some budget to do that.
Yep. And we talk a lot about the community that we have and the networking that happens. And Marco speaks of is it's not some sort of secret, meeting that we have behind the meeting, but it's just natural that when you're together with people that you really enjoy, you have those different perspectives. And there's a lot of things that happen and conversations that happen sort of in that hallway kind of conversation. I'm sure that you have as you have wrestle with your own work from home questions. There's a question about the limit on geolocation. No, there's not. I mean, our preference, historically, ETOA's roots have been in London and most of the members have been in the UK. So we are looking for a broader European diversification, but in this case, TAUC has been a member. We're a US-based company, but we've been a member for, I think, since the founding, and so we're not limited also on having US perspective, as long as Europe is a predominant inbound destination for American travelers too. Let's see. What is the serving time at the advisory council? That is 1 to 3 years with the option to renew at the will of the board. And I hope that answered that question. If it didn't, raise your hand and tell me. And the approximate budget exclusive of air. I'm sorry, I don't understand that question.
Well,
Is that Marco? Do you?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it again probably related to cost of attending the meeting.
Okay.
Usually, it depends where you are located, but wherever the meeting is, for example, if it's in London, normally, if you're not based in London, you'll be expected to cover your accommodation and travel expenses. There might be a sponsored dinner, for example, on the day of the meeting. But again, that all depends on the generosity of our sponsors if they do that. So you have to budget accordingly. As Jennifer said, it's very likely there will be one meeting in London, one in Brussels, and then potentially 1 or 2 meetings in London, and then another one in a European destination. How much of those costs will be covered by the sponsors? It has to be seen. So it's best that you always budget for these 4 meetings, both for accommodation and transport there. It's very difficult to quantify. It depends on what you're gonna book yourself with.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And it relates to the question of how many days are the meetings over, and typically the advisory council is an afternoon meeting followed by a dinner. Some folks choose to stay over that night depending on your geographic location. Others will travel home. But for all the reasons that Marco said, sometimes it's best to stick around for the dinner because first of all, it's a great way to network, but also to thank our sponsors who are willing to and eager to host us. So for example, in December, we have an afternoon advisory council meeting followed by a dinner graciously hosted by Visit Britain. And then we have a board meeting the following morning. So the advisory council obviously wouldn't need to attend. So if you're near enough that you can get a late flight or a train, then certainly you don't need to spend overnight. But in some situations, it just might be a more pleasant experience if you can. And as Marco said, some of it depends on where you like to stay. And that, as you know, can be a wide range of expenses. And in some cases, when we are out of country, we are able to get through our great hotel partners a discounted rate. Not always, but that's an option as well.
There's one more question.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
What geo countries do you cover as business service scope? We basically cover any area covered by ETOA. So if you're based in UK, you're still welcome because yes, UK has left the EU, but from a tourist point of view, we're still part of the community of Europe, let's call it like that. So any area covered by ETOA will be covered by the committee. So you can be based anywhere from Switzerland to Norway, from any European country that is part of the EU, but the UK as well, of course. As Jennifer said, quite a few of us are based in the UK, so we're not discriminating against that. But as we said, we are looking for people from other geographical area if feasible, but those are not the only requirement.
We certainly don't want to discourage anyone from applying
No,
for those reasons.
no.
let's see. I'll leave it just one more
It's
minute
all
or
gone
two if
quiet.
there's any more questions. Yeah. No, I love all the questions. This is great. And
Yes.
thank you all for raising them. There's no silly question, because certainly when I joined the advisory council, it was a bit of a mystery to me as well, even though Tauc had a long history involved. So we're trying to make this process, one of my goals in my role is to make these processes more transparent of how membership and overall participation in these governance bodies work. And so this is our first attempt at having this sort of transparent, more transparent sort of application process and timeline. So we hope that this is helpful and answers any questions.
Can I just add
Yeah.
the fact that the advisory council is an extremely democratic process. It doesn't matter how long you've been serving. It doesn't matter the size of your company or which part of the industry you represent. You're still able to ask your question, raise your concern, and have your voice being heard. So it's not about power. It's about a dialogue, a very open dialogue between all the members.
Yeah, well said. The question came up again and again about how many people will admit. Again, our target is 1 to 3, but I think a lot of that depends on the nature of the applicant pool that we're seeking and how that might fit with our desired needs. We do poll our current advisory council. We're still waiting to hear to see if they would like to continue to participate, and we're still waiting on a couple folks. And so that will also help determine our overall composition of how many we feel comfortable adding. And we've limited it as a maximum of 25, simply, and again, with that 15 to 20 target, just because there's always that dynamic. I'm sure many of you've been in where at some point it gets too big that it's just hard to have that kind of conversation. And we do recognize, though, that not everybody can be in person at every meeting. And so we have that mix at hand. So I hope that answers that question. Okay. Any others? Okay, well, and barring none, unless one comes squeaking in here at the last minute, I want to again, Marco, thank you so much for speaking today, joining me in the nominating committee in this process. I want to thank the whole team at ETOA you're welcome, Richard, thank you, for driving all of this and putting such a great process together. They're an incredibly professional, well-run group, and I admire them very much, and I'm glad to be associated with it and look forward to reading all the applications as they come in.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. You have been a very, very good host today.
Thank you. Thanks, Marco. This is fun. We'll do this again. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great, as we say, American Thanksgiving week. And you can have some turkey on my behalf.
All right, we will.
Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you. Thanks.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Bye,
Thanks so
everyone.
much. Okay. Bye-bye.